True. Hi there, and welcome to Talking True. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to be inviting back my longtime friend, Lisa Gunshore, who is a functional Ayurveda practitioner, and she is the host of the Buddhist Biohacker platform. So welcome, Lisa. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And today we're going to be diving into a topic that is really timely, and the theme is menopause as initiation, embracing change. Now, the reason I wanted to dive into this topic is that I was on Threads the other day, and there was a great long conversation with all kinds of complaints about the physical effects of menopause, and nobody was speaking about the deeper implications of what happens as we go through what is called the change. So Lisa and I are going to be diving into that in this discussion. And we'd love to have you ask questions or leave comments or share your own experiences of what this means, because it is a huge, huge topic for women. And there are many, many, many positives that we're going to be highlighting today. So, Lisa, where should we start? Where should we start? Where should we start?
Well, thank you. First off, thank you so much for having me. I love, love, love a good Sunday morning talking to you. So I'm so grateful for that. And, I thought a good place to start is to talk about what menopause is in Ayurveda. And because I think it lays the foundation, I think, of our discussion. So in Ayurveda, menopause is the shift from the Pitta phase. Pitta is fire energy. So it's that Pitta phase of life is our achievement, productivity, creating purpose in the world. And so when we go through menopause, we're shifting from that phase into the Vata phase. Vata is the ether and the air. So we're shifting into wisdom and spirituality and reflection. And another way I like to think about it, just because I love tarot cards, is it's really shifting from that empress stage of life, that goddess, empress, fertile stage, into the high priestess stage. The high priestess with her, that card is even a different energy. It's blues and grays, and it's really going into that place of spiritual wisdom. So Ayurveda really honors menopause as the sage's season. It's about our intuition and our clarity deepening. And also, the energy that we were using for reproduction and fertility is now shifted to art, wisdom, and self-realization. And I think that to me is just such a beautiful definition from Ayurveda of shifting from this very intense, and we were just talking about this offline, but this, intent, we're working all these hours and we're doing all these things and we're driving kids to school and all these things, shifting out of that energy into this place of like peaceful reflection. It's part of why I'm sitting outside today, like just being with the earth and the sky and the vastness of the spiritual wisdom that we carry.
Yeah. And that is an amazing detailed description of what menopause is. And of course, the thing is we can speak about the physiological effects, the night sweats, the mood swings, the mind fog. Some women on Threads were saying that they even were getting kind of tingling and itching
Mm.
in their ears, which thankfully I didn't get. But
Me neither, thank God. I'm a hot flash girl.
yeah, there's great long lists of these things. The deeper changes are reflected oftentimes in our personality and the way we express, and that has to do oftentimes with how we express creatively and spiritually. And certainly, one of the things that is often spoken about is how women no longer put up with bullshit. They can't
Mm.
stand bullshit in themselves, and they can't stand bullshit in other people. So there's a call for clarity. And there's this deep recognition that no matter what happens, you have to be in truth You have to speak your truth. You have to be in truth in every area of your life. And it almost becomes a kind of discomfort. There's a quality of discomfort in the body, the mind, the emotions, when you know that you're trying to interact with someone or something, an organization that isn't in high flow and isn't in the highest level of truth. And this, of course, speaks to the wisdom keeper, that, this role that you're being called, or you're being kind of pushed
Hmm.
into entering into, and reflecting truth in the highest, the most kind of authentic way. And that is definitely something that we're handed. You have no choice. And I think part of that too is knowing that you're in kind of the last stages of your life, and you don't have time for anything that isn't in alignment with your highest and best interest, and the highest and best interest of those that you are either working with or sharing your life with. And
Hmm.
I know that's true for you, it's true for me, and I'm sure it's true for any women who are watching this right now. So, I mean, I'd love other women who are going through perimenopause or full-blown menopause to share your experience of, what that has been like in terms of the bullshit detector, because somehow your bullshit detector becomes super refined, super sensitive, and you just kind of have no choice. There's no tolerance.
Oh, absolutely. There's a gal, she's pretty big, I think, on social media at this point, who does the We Don't Care Club. And it's funny, because a lot of it is like, well, we don't care if we're wearing yoga pants or our pajamas through the carpool line or whatever. So they're funny. And it goes back to what you say. It's not even that we don't care, it's that we don't have the space and the energy to deal with it. And I noticed something about myself, Julie, with this transition time is, in my younger pitta stage of life, um, if I got sick, that energy came up, where it's like, oh, I don't have the vitality, like, especially when I was dealing with parasites, I didn't even want to hold my phone. I just didn't want any of that energy. I couldn't be on social media. I just really cut a lot out of my life. And I'm noticing that that energy is arising. It's from a different place, but it's definitely arising with this transition place. Like you're saying, it's like, I don't want to cultivate certain relationships anymore. And I found too, it's creating new relationships is not something I'm necessarily interested in unless it's a really deep connection, because it's just, again, it's that I don't have the space. And I was looking at this through an Ayurvedic lens, and you'll love this because one of the things that the Vedic scriptures talk about is that when we cease menstruation, there's a preservation of our ojas. Our ojas is our vitality. So um, in Ayurveda, we only have so many ojas drops. And they say that you actually lose a full drop with every child that you have. And so it's this really sacred thing, and you can build that vitality back up, but you don't necessarily like retrieve those drops again, which I think is an interesting thing. So this is what I found interesting in relation to what we're talking about, Julie, is um, when we cease menstruation, the ojas, or the essence of our vitality, is conserved. Oh, and so now we have this fuel to nourish ourselves and to create something different. And the other thing that comes with this is, because we're not releasing Shakti through fertility, it starts to move up through our chakras. So menopause becomes this opening of our higher consciousness, and our intuitive gifts amplify. And I love this. You're going to love this. It says in Dr. Ladd's book that menopause is when we go from Shakti to Rishi.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that cool? So
That's so. Do you want to just detail what rishi means, because some people might not know?
Well, let's see if I can, right? I don't even know if I can. I'm learning about it myself.
Oh,
The Rishi phase is really where our wisdom and our intuition moves up and out. And the rishis, of course, the Maharishis, thousands of years ago, were receiving all of this information. You and I both, this is a whole other show, but we both had a Nadi leaf reading that was written by rishis. And so, what Dr. Ladd says is we're moving from this stage of the Shakti coming up and out, and we're creating and birthing and all these things into this Rishi phase where we're receiving this intuitive natural wisdom and we're able to flow the wisdom outward rather than necessarily the creations that we've been doing.
yes, yes. So, and a rishi, the way I would describe it as well, is really an enlightened being, a
Mhm.
master, female or male, doesn't matter what sex, but an enlightened being that is living true to their authentic beingness, which is, which includes the personal expression as well, but it's really a full connection with one's higher self and higher knowing, and then speaking that truth. And it isn't necessarily through speaking, your whole being, your state is what does the work. And of course, that may express differently for all of us. I mean, I've often shared that, what happened with me when I went through menopause, which was fairly early. I think I was 47 actually. um, but from that point on, I was being kind of pushed. I mean, I had no choice to start writing and to start
Mhm.
sharing. And I mean, it was such a huge surprise to me because I'd never had that on my wish list, but I couldn't help myself. It was like this huge energy took up residence within my being because, as you said, it wasn't outgoing. And
Mhm.
so then that energy was then kind of compelling me to start writing. And I had my journals to dip into to start writing articles and all of those things. And then that led me to write books and start sharing and speaking and doing, creating a YouTube channel and doing things I would never have imagined doing ever. It just was never, on my radar. So it was all extremely unexpected, but it's a result of this energy that starts to kind of shift and grow inside. And because it's not, as you said, it's not outgoing, it becomes really huge. And then it wants to be expressed in whatever way we're called to express that. And to really stand in the authenticity of our pure knowing, and in that, from a place of wisdom. And then also not being afraid to share. That's the other thing as well, because that
Mhm.
can really kind of hold people back, especially women, for obvious reasons. Historically, we've been taught to, or kind of warned, not to share our esoteric wisdom and to hide it and to speak secretly to one another, but never kind of be out publicly. Thankfully, that's changing. But even so, I think a lot of women do still struggle with that. Who am I to share these things? What will happen if I share? What will happen if I speak my truth? That really still has an imprint and an impact on many women's capacity to really own and share what they know to be true. So those of us that are doing that are kind of at the forefront in many ways of really telling women and men, of course, because men go through their own shifts and changes, but really saying this is time and there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. And we're compelled. We have to tell the truth. We've got no choice, right?
Yeah, well, and you're inspiring me, with what you're saying about telling the truth and the bullshit detector. So I'm going to be 47 next month and am in the perimenopause stage, although I believe it's really just I don't know that we need to separate it between perimenopause. It's just the transition time. That's kind of how I feel about it rather than labeling it. But, you know, you also aren't willing to put up with your own bullshit. And
No.
I think that's something that I've experienced as I begin my transition is I'm I just want to put all my patterns down. I'm starting to look at things differently. Like, am I going to take this pattern with me to the end? And I'm starting to observe those around me that I've known for years and years, friends, family, whatever, and their patterns. And how do we put all these patterns down? How do we break through them and heal them? And it's a different energy than the transformative energy of my 30s. You know, that was a time of kind of this almost explosion of shattering of consciousness and this shattering of the illusion of myself. And now it's more like I just can't put up with my own shit anymore. My
No.
own bullshit has to be put
Yeah.
down. And I think, something I want to touch on too with this is from a physical perspective, you know, I just want to share with everyone. I definitely was going through a lot of, night sweats and hot flashes and hormonal changes and my cycle. My cycle's been right on the money all these years because I have managed diet and energy, all of my own health journey has kept my cycle in a very healthy place, and all of a sudden it wasn't. And I just want to share, there's something interesting, and let's see if I can articulate the energy of this because I want to really share this. What came to me intuitively, and again in Ayurveda, in the very first textbook that Dr. Ladd, I have it highlighted, the Ayurvedic doctor always trusts their intuition first, intuition over experience, which I think is really, I have it highlighted. It's like burned into my brain because that was when I knew Ayurveda was right for me, because it's all about your intuition. And so what came to me is, it's this ringing out, it's a ringing out of the womb and the body. It's this releasing. And I felt like because of the hormonal challenges, my body was sitting very stagnant. You start to carry weight, right? Everybody talks about the weight you gain because of the hormone changes and all these different things. And I did my own research. That's who I am. And I put myself on a whole new routine about 60 days ago with supplementation. And not only am I a whole new person, I feel so much better, but my cycle has completely returned on time. And my intuitive sense of this is in managing the hormonal piece and the transition piece. And again, it's all through Ayurvedic herbs and diet. But in managing that ringing out is continuing. I feel like now my cycle is back, but it's back to finish clearing out. And I have this feeling, Julie, and again, this is coming from my experience and intuition. This is not necessarily in a textbook someplace, but my intuition of it is if we sit in that stagnant place too long, that's when all of the challenges come. The weight gets even more intense, the hot flashes or all of these different symptoms that people experience become more intense versus allowing the purification to happen. And another interesting piece here about this rebalancing of the agni or the fire in the body, these hot flashes and these night sweats, everyone sees those as punishment. Oh, the hot flashes. But this is a sign of purification through heat. And Julie, I know you've had experiences where you've been basically on fire to purify the body. And that's what's happening. So if we can allow the fire to transmute our physical and emotional residue that we're storing and those karmic traces that are still within us that want to be cleared and purified, that's going to contribute to the lightness and the clarity. So even in the last 60 days, what I've experienced is in rebalancing my hormonal energy, that fire energy has come and gone. I feel a cooling and it's just this releasing. It becomes almost like a ritual to release and have these final menstruations rather than having them stop and start and be clunky and strange and the blood is different colors and all these weird things. And so I just want to share from my experience. I think if we can embrace it as almost a purification or an initiation rather than looking at it as this awful thing we're going through, I feel like much like everything else, when you come to the metaphysical principle of it, the physical condition releases.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the thing is that what I'm remembering as you're sharing that is that when I was going through the beginning to middle stages of menopause, I had a lucid dream where I was with Native American shamans, women, and they built this huge, huge fire, and they were dancing and shaking rattles, and they had feathers, and they painted me and put feathers on me and so on. And then they were kind of leading me and inviting me in to step into the fire, and I did. And I felt this tremendous, tremendous heat that was coming up through my feet and through my body. And then the energy took form, and it became a massive, massive crow, and it came
Oh,
out
wow.
and then flew away. And I knew as I was watching it, and they were chanting and telling me that I have embodied the crow energy or the crone energy. And that was what the call to action was going forward. And when I woke from that dream, I just felt so incredible. And of course, I did my research afterwards, with respect to, what the crow energy and crone energy mean, and, what the embodiment of all of that is. But, that was, and that was way before I kind of had any understanding of what was really happening and what the initiation part of menopause was speaking to. And I do also want to say, that for some women, I think it's great if you can find natural remedies to help with the night sweats and to manage, especially if you're still working. It can be very difficult.
Hmm.
Personally, I tried everything from black cohosh to, changing my diet and doing every single thing I could possibly do to help. But I was having these really intense hot flashes every 15 minutes during the day and night, to the point that
Mm.
I would want to vomit. So I had no choice. I tried everything. It really, nothing touched it. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then I thankfully was able to find, a medical doctor, an actual doctor in Freeport, who was very much into Ayurveda and natural remedies and so on and so forth. And then he helped me, gave me something called Her Balance, which is a cream, which is a natural progesterone. And then he gave me, I think it was Progenova. So it's okay. I'm saying it's okay to take HRT if that's what your body is kind of dictating or guiding you towards. Because even if you're using that, your energetic response will still carry you through these phases, and there'll still be an initiation, because it just happens of its own accord, and it certainly happened in my case. And then I had other experiences and other dreams and other initiations that were speaking to the same thing, and the kind of the releasing of that energy and the manifestation of that energy, and then calls to action around what that looked like and what I was being guided to do. And it can be incredibly challenging. We're not, Lisa and I, certainly you and I are not, diminishing the challenges around what you have to deal with, right? Because
Hmm.
it can run the gamut. I mean, the other thing that I had was frozen shoulder. I'd never heard of such a thing. And
Yeah.
so it was incredibly painful. And it wasn't until much later that I found out that frozen shoulder links to, the menopause and drops in natural estrogen and so on and so forth. And so there can be these things that happen to you that you've got to deal with and you've got to face. But this change, this positive change, this initiation has the most incredible benefits if you're embracing it in the right way and understanding what is actually happening, right? You're moving from this kind of, as you said, outgoing phase where your energy is creative and spiritual energy is going out. And then it's coming back to you. And then the call to action is to share it in a different way and to be very kind of grounded and very centered and be authentically you, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I am call myself the Buddhist biohacker for a reason. And one thing I really loved, I just recently was able to attend teachings with Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, and he was talking about his biofeedback devices. And I have an Aura ring. I've had one too before they were cool. I had them since 2018. I've had my ring. And he said, my pain identities, this is what the Rinpoche said, my pain identities will give me all sorts of excuses. He said, but my biofeedback device
Wow.
will always tell me the truth. If I'm stressed, if I didn't get enough sleep, he's like, my pain identity will come up with all sorts of reasons I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing or staying up late or being in a stressful situation. He goes, but my biofeedback device, he goes, that's what I trust. He said, that's truth. That's what he said. And it reminded me of why I'm the Buddhist biohacker, but I'm sharing that because a couple really great tips for everyone. So first off, my Aura ring, part of what the Aura ring does is it shows your body temperature. And it's become incredibly powerful for me to have that information through perimenopause because my body temperature spikes before my cycle. And I was having these, my cycles have been sporadic. And it's really notified me immediately when I see the temperature go up. Okay, my cycle is going to come. So there's not this unexpected, like people talk about flash periods and different things. Those have gone away for me. Not that that experience has gone away, but my biofeedback device actually is telling me when that's going to happen. And so that has been really powerful. Also, much like you, Julie, it's not just an herb that has saved me. I've done I do genetic testing and hormone testing and all these different tests. Well, I've done those on myself. And so one of the things that I learned about myself is that my liver doesn't process estrogen correctly. So one of the things I've done for myself is added an amino acid called calcium D-glucarate. And I wouldn't go out and just try it. I would definitely get some testing, but it helps my liver to process estrogen out of the body. And I've dropped like 6 pounds. I have been working out and eating right and doing all these things with no change. And as soon as I added that amino acid in, I dropped 6 pounds in the last month
Wow.
without changing anything with myself, just from moving the estrogen out, because I did test my hormones and my estrogen was at a high level, a dangerous level for breast cancer and all of these things. I'm also someone who hasn't had biological children. So we estrogen dump. Our estrogen is typically very high during perimenopause, which is why women who haven't had children have such a high risk of breast cancer and uterine cancer. So I just want to share for those of you who maybe haven't had children or dealing with high estrogen, it's really important to do the genetic testing to understand how your body processes the estrogen, because the shots or the creams or the pills or the supplements or the herbs or whatever may or may not help you if your physical body cannot genetically process that. So that's one of the things that I learned about myself that I've changed that has made a difference. The other thing is Banyan Botanicals is my Ayurvedic dispensary of choice. And they don't do affiliates. So, I don't get any money for this, and you can go online and order it yourself. But they have two different uh, tablets. One is called Women's Support and one is called Women's Transition. So if you're somebody like me who is just beginning this journey, the Women's Support is just a tablet. You take one in the morning and one in the evening. Within 2 weeks, my cycle and my hormones were regulated. It was unbelievable. And then the women's transition is for those of you who have already, like, your period has stopped and you're in that beginning stage or even deep into menopause. It's really for the rest of your life. And that has worked really well for some of my clients who are in the full menopause stage. To really, what it does is you tend to dry out, right? You go into vata, which is air and ether. So your body dries out, and so does your sexual drive, and all of the lubrication we have dries out. And so that women's transition tablet really helps with that. It helps rebalance that energy and bring your sex drive back. So those are two things I just want to share. The hormone tests or saliva. It's like 250, I think, depending on what panel we do. And the genetic testing is also only it's 299, and that's also saliva. So they're very easy tests you do at home. We get the results. But I just want to share that because I think I have always believed that knowledge is power. And so it wasn't like I just decided to take a supplement and it worked. I really had to look at what was happening with my body and my genetics and my hormones and make some decisions about what was going to best support me. And it took me about, I don't know, it's taken me about a year to figure it out for myself. But now I'm just on the right thing and I just feel so, so good. So I want to share that, like, just like you're saying, Julie, like you've got to find what works for you. And this goes back to that wisdom stage we were talking about, Julie, which is trusting your intuition, because you really have to advocate for yourself with your physicians, whether they're Western medicine PhD doctors or they're holistic doctors. You need to be able to speak up and say, this isn't working or this is working. And having that space, that's one thing I really love about Dr. Jill is she always has given me space where I say, gosh, this was too much. So I dropped the dose. She's like, that's totally fine. Like having this space to be able to understand what works for you versus what doesn't work for you to support your body.
Yes, yes. So I'd like to come back for the sake of viewers to the testing, the genetic testing that you're offering. How does that work if I want to, find out more? What happens? What's the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all you have to do, actually, if you go to my website, which is lisamgunshore.com, it's also buddhistbiohacker.com. You can find me multitude of ways. But when you go to my website, if you go to the work with me, where it has all my one-on-one coaching, I have a free 15-minute consultation that you can book with me. And we just get on a Zoom or a phone call, or you can come to my office if you're in Colorado. And we just talk for 15 minutes about what's going on, and I can help you with the test. I use full script, and so I'm a clinician with full script. I am an API. I have an API number. So what that means for everybody in the United States is you can use your insurance, you can use your HSA and FSA cards, all that stuff for the test. But I actually just send you the test through full script. You can pay for it through full script either with your HSA, FSA, or a credit card, or however you want to. You pay on full script. They ship you the test. It's very easy to do. You collect your saliva and you send it in, and it takes about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, but it's pretty been consistent about 8 weeks. We get all of your DNA results. And when I say all, we're going to get every genetic mutation that you have in your body to understand what's working, what's not. What do you do well biologically? What do you have challenges with? And then we can build a plan from there. So it's absolutely awesome. And like I said, it's only $299 and you get so much. I mean, it's like a 40-page document you're going to get with your
Wow,
genetic information. Yeah. And it is
wow.
completely private, by the way. It's not like 23andMe. For those of you who are concerned about your information being shared, it's through 3x4 Genetics. It's a different company. Everything's utilizing barcode, so it's not linked to your name, the results. It is when we get it, but it's not within their database. So
Fantastic. And so it's sent to you via, it's mailed to you, or it's sent to you via an
email.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful colored PDF document, and it actually even has pictures. It even tells you how your body operates in exercise. And
Wow.
if you're efficient or not with exercise, it tells you how you hold fat. It tells you how you process caffeine. I mean, it gives you so much information. And so I love the genetic tests almost as the first test. But the reason I offer the free 15-minute consult is it may be that you really just need that hormone test, or it may be that you're struggling with, heavy metals or something that you want specific information. But the genetic test gets right to the root of everything. And in Ayurveda, right, we're born with a body that's here to achieve our dharma, achieve our wisdom and our purpose. And if your body isn't functioning well, it has challenges, then it makes it very difficult for you to achieve your purpose. And so that's really where I come from with it, is it's about your lineage and about your ancestry and looking at your genetics and understanding what you're holding.
Yeah. So if I did it right and did the testing and then got the
Hmm.
report and all of those things, then are you available to be able to sit down with me and go over the report? Because I might not necessarily understand, what it's saying, right? If it's too complex.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I offer a functional Ayurveda package, and it's essentially 3 sessions.
Uh-huh.
So it gives us a session for an intake to really talk about everything. We spend an hour together really going over everything. Then we do a session when the report shows up, and that's to go over, I'll go over the whole report with you. And I also provide a personalized plan for lifestyle, diet, and supplementation. So you're going to get a whole plan of like, this is how to manage my body genetically. And then the third session is a 30-day follow-up so that we can tailor, because once you start the diets and the supplement and you're kind of getting used to it, we're going to understand that some things are working, some things aren't, some things we want to add or change. So that functional package, like I said, it's actually 3 60-minute sessions with me. And then it also includes 2 courses, actually 3 courses that I have online. So it includes an introduction to Ayurveda course so that you can understand what Ayurveda is about. There's a course about parasites, mold, and candida that you'll have access to kind of understand how toxic burden affects your genetics, because mostly what we find out is that your genetics can't handle toxicity, which is why I have that course. And then the third course I just added, it's Liberate Your Lineage. And it's a beautiful 3-lesson course on how to work with your genetics, but also how to work with your family tree and start to link your karma and your ancestral patterns with the genetic testing. So I actually walk you through all of that. So you get all of that with the package. You get 3 sessions with me, plus you get 3 courses. And that I've created on purpose, and that's on the Work With Me page too. So you get a ton of resources, because once you open up, it's like opening Pandora's box. Once you open your genetics, you want to learn all about it. So it's, gives you, you'll have a lifetime of information on how to take care of your body, but also how to take it to the next level spiritually if you want to as well. So yeah, that package is on my site. You can also just book a session to go over the test, but the 3 sessions are nice because you really do need to have that initial conversation about what's going on. Then we get your test results, and then we do a follow-up as well.
Yeah, that sounds incredible, because the thing is that unless you're familiar with your genetic kind of makeup, it's very difficult to work with it. And all of this information might not necessarily be available to your doctor, your GP.
Right.
Because obviously they're just kind of having conversations with you based on the immediate things that they're seeing. And they don't
Hmm.
necessarily know the lineage stuff in particular. And
Oh
I
yeah, they don't link the spiritual part at all.
not at
And I'll
all.
share too, like I have a COMT is what it's called. It's a genetic mutation of the liver. And so all it means is my liver is a challenge. It has some challenges. And so I just want to share with everyone, I took DIM, I did broccoli sprouts, I did all the things to reduce your estrogen, right? All the different ways you can do it, and nothing was working. And the reason why is because my body couldn't process the estrogen. So taking all those supplements was pointless. I was just
Mm.
peeing out stuff that wasn't ever going to do it. And this simple amino acid literally has completely been a game changer. And so my breasts aren't swollen anymore. My cycle's back to normal, and I'm losing weight. So I just want to share, like, that's the power of the genetic piece. Is you might take 100 supplements, but they might not matter at all, because if your body doesn't process iron or doesn't process B vitamins, then taking them is pointless. So
Yeah,
getting the genetic information is like a big game changer.
you're not kidding. I mean, we see kind of patterns through especially through the female lineage, right? But it's just
Hmm.
it's just knowing how do you work with that in a way
Yeah.
that is accessible to you with the information that you're given, which is often very scant, right? And
Hmm.
it's really difficult to navigate your way. And I love the fact that you've really reinforced the importance of mandating for yourself and having conversations with your GP or your health care practitioner about what is right for you and what isn't right for you. Because it's really easy just to kind of keep going along with what a doctor prescribes and, not really kind of mentioning that this isn't working or that let me try this differently or let's do this. And oftentimes your GP doesn't necessarily have that much time for you. I mean, in the UK,
Hmm.
I think it's 3 minutes is the kind of
Oh,
allocated
wow.
time, especially with the national health. And then you can only ask one question at a time. It's just crazy. So just having that extra information, that all of those pieces does make a huge difference. And then also you can feel empowered that you've got more kind of agency when it comes to being able to take care of your own health and not blindly doing the things that really, as you said, aren't that making that much difference. So, all of these things are so, so important, especially when you're going through menopause and you're trying to deal with the sort of physical, effects and, the emotional ups and downs and all the other things that happen. So that's,
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, and a couple things I want to say that you brought up. It goes back to that bullshit detector. And if anybody has read my books, Cherry Pie and Enlightenment Pie, you know this story. When I was sick with parasites, I was told I was crazy. I needed Xanax. I was told you're overreacting, you're a hypochondriac. And that was a moment for me where I was like, I'm not accepting that as the answer, and I'm not taking this pill, and I'm going to find somebody who has the answers. And so it's not that they're wrong, but if they don't have the training or the understanding of the biology or the functional pieces or whatever it is, they only know how to treat what they see and they don't know what to do beyond that. So advocating for yourself is huge. Um, I also want to go back to the lineage piece. I credit you this with Julie, which is, years ago when I was dealing with my parasites, you had mentioned to me or told me about, when we heal ourselves, we heal 7 generations forward and 7 generations backward. And I went back 7 generations of women, me, my mom, my grandma, my great grandma, I'm back, and when I did that, I wrote down their names and their birth dates and their death dates, and I started working with the energy. And that is in this course, you guys, in this Liberate Your Lineage course. I do have a Liberate Your Lineage article that you can read that's been published in several magazines as well. But that's part of it, is looking at your family tree and understanding that the fear and the stress and the abusive relationships and the hardships and living on farms and all these things that happen through our lineage are actually locked inside our DNA. And by uncovering the physical genetic aspects, you start to dig into your spiritual, the lineage aspects, which starts to bring forward all the gifts. Because once you start to look at that, it's like, oh my gosh, I found out my mom has gone back now to about 5,000 ancestors since that exercise in 2011, of opening our Akashic records as a family and looking at these generations, from me asking questions like, who are these people? We have found out, I mean, we have fought in every war. My family has been very intuitive. I have a great, great ancestor. She left her alcoholic husband with her 13 children and went in a covered wagon across Death Valley, and her photo is in a museum. And we didn't
well,
even know that. And she was rescued by the mule train in Death Valley. I mean, think of the resilience and the strength and the intuition and the power of the people that we discover in our family. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And to me, that's part of this gift of menopause. And the transition is really starting to reflect on these karmic traces. What are we here to release, to purify, to clear? And our body is that conduit and that vehicle to do it. And we want to allow it. We don't want to tell it not to. We don't want to take the, say, I just shouldn't have hot flashes and I shouldn't do this. Instead, it's about allowing it to just come up and release, like you're saying, with the experiences that you've had, just letting it happen, letting it come out and learning how to balance yourself within what's happening to you.
Yes, and
Mm.
and really honoring it. Many times over the last week or so, I've seen articles online about generational poverty, but I haven't seen much, especially for women, about generational inhibition, generational closing
Mm.
down of our gifts, generational fear around standing in our intuitive knowing and speaking our truth. And that certainly is what's kind of loosened, I think, during menopause. This is kind of freeing, but we can still revert back to these habits of closing ourselves down, not wanting to be seen, being afraid of speaking our truth. But if you do the work that you've just detailed, and especially if you have some sort of genetic testing that supports all of that, then you're not only helping yourself, you're helping your whole entire lineage, going back in time and going forward in time. And it's absolutely huge. It's completely life changing. And it's all of this work is available to us as long as we,
Yes.
but it's really about reframing the kind of the taboo and the negative conversations around menopause and looking at it as a positive. It's just another transition, it's another change in our lives. And there are positives, there are benefits, there are great things that we can, celebrate and enjoy and, and begin to see differently rather than through this narrow lens of a sort of a negative perspective. It's,
Yeah.
it's,
I'm excited about it, to be honest with you. I feel like I really only saw my life through the Pitta stage. I really had this foresight of it. And then it was like kind of scary because it was like, ooh, I'm transitioning and I didn't really know what I was going to do next. And I'll be honest, we were talking about this offline, but I'll share with the audience, I'm just sitting in this space, the great Mahashunya, right? The void, just sitting in the nothingness, like, wow, like I have a whole other chapter now to create things that I've completed my creations that I wanted to do. I feel proud that I've done that. My books and my courses and my work is done. It's out there, it's available to all of you to access. And now what? And I'm really excited about exploring some things. I wanted to go to college for Shakespeare, and I love Shakespearean theater and all of his prose and all of those things. And I love the transcendentalist movement. And I've always wanted to read Thomas Jefferson's esoteric writings. And so I really see this phase as an exciting time to explore some things that I really didn't know that I'd have the time or space to do. And what will birth from that? I
mm,
think when we're done birthing in that space, we can birth through our crown chakras, and that looks and feels very different, I think, and it's exciting to me.
yes, because it's limitless. And
Hmm.
that's the truth. It's all available to us, and it's absolutely amazing. I mean, again, before we came, online together, well, when we were speaking privately, the I was sharing a dream that I remembered that I'd had with His Holiness the Dalai Lama many years ago. Actually, it was certainly just before pre-menopause, I would say. And he looked at me and he rested his ear against my heart. He was listening to my heart. And then he sat back and he said, they have made it. And he was speaking about the great beings, about source, about God. He said, they have made it so that you can do anything you want to do in your life. And I really took that on as this huge gift of recognition and knowing that that was the truth. And certainly when it comes to menopause, if you can look at it in a positive light and look at the benefits and realize it is an initiation, and it is about embracing change, and it is about going with the flow and also being at ease in the not knowing, then you can definitely create these amazing new expressions, creative expressions that you may never have even dreamed of. I mean, I never ever imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing. I never imagined I'd be an author. I never, it didn't even occur to me remotely when I was younger. And that all kind of started to land and manifest and push and prod until I saw it and then stood behind it and then began to just go with the flow of it. And going with the flow of all of that is so incredible. And again, it's about changing our perspective and looking at menopause in a new light and in a more expansive way, an exciting way.
Mm. Well, and to add to that, the Dalai Lama is the incarnation of Avalokiteshvara and the Bodhisattva of compassion. And the Heart Sutra is his mantra. It's Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhiswaha, which means there's nothing, there's absolutely nothing, there's completely, absolutely nothing. And they call it the Heart Attack Sutra in the Tibetan community because it's very intense and shattering to recognize that there's nothing. And as you're sharing, Julie, it's that in that nothingness, we can be anything. And I think, what if instead of, you know, sitting in this space of, oh, all of us are going through this change and it's awful and the hot flashes and I'm angry and I'm frustrated and this is what happens when I'm angry and all these things, is to say, wow, I am shifting into the ether, into the nothingness, into the void. And from that place, I can be anything as I go forward. And I think that is inspiring.
Yes, fantastic. Well, I think that might be an amazing, wonderful, incredible place to end this conversation. I absolutely loved it. But before we close, Lisa, do you just want to remind people, where they can find you and what's new, what you're offering now?
Absolutely. So again, my website, buddhistbiohacker.com or lisamgunshore.com, whatever is easier for you to spell. And um, I would say that I would really love everyone to check out my courses. I have 20 online courses. I have a mystery school set of courses. I have beautiful courses that are continued education credit with Yoga Alliance for all of you who are yoga teachers or interested, aspiring to be a yoga teacher. And there are a whole section of health and wellness courses, including that lineage course. They're all available online. They're beautiful to navigate. I mean, I've put so much work and effort. So I'd love for everyone to dive into that if you're interested in learning more. And you can also click on that work with me page if you're interested in a session, or if you want to come and talk to me for 15 minutes for free and just kind of decide where you want to go with your health, we can do that as well. So those would be my offerings, and going to be focusing on tarot this fall because it's the witchy time of year. I have a beautiful tarot book and I have a tarot course immersion as well. I have a minor arcana course coming out too. So look for that. I'm going to round out my tarot book by adding in the minor arcana because it just doesn't feel complete until I do that. So if you're interested in learning that, I have that as well.
Fantastic. Well, Lisa, thank you so, so much.
Mm,
Of course, all of that will be in the show notes so people can just click and go. But Lisa, thank you so, so much for joining me today. This has been a really very powerful and profound episode. And I'm so happy that we had the opportunity to discuss menopause and the benefits of menopause, right? Instead of getting into kind of negative talk. So thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you so much for hosting me. And I just love you. And I love being on here and talking with you anytime.
Thank you. Love you too, Lisa. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. As always, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join us. If you haven't subscribed, you know what to do. And please leave a comment, even if it's an emoji, that would be absolutely great. And spread the word. So thanks again. That's all from us for now. Take it easy, be well, and see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.